ICQ Podcast episode 308, announcing Homebrew Hero 2019. Well, hi and welcome fellow Amateur Radio enthusiasts, and welcome to this, our 308th episode of the ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast, supported by David Reed, Whiskey 6 Kilo Lima, along with our monthly annual subscription donors. In this episode, Martin M1MRB is joined by Leslie Golf 0 Charlie India Bravo, Edmund Mike 0 Mike November Golf, and Matthew Mike 0 November Julia X-Ray to discuss latest amateur radio news. Myself, Colin M6BOY, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature, we announce the Homebrew Hero of 2019. Well, it's our donors and sponsors that keep us advert free, those guys that send even one-off donations or subscriptions. And this episode, we'd like to thank David Reed, Whiskey 6 Kilo Lima. No message, just David just wanted to help out, and he sent us a one-off donation to help us pay our way. And his donation, along with the guys who sign up for subscription donors, they sponsor the show and keep us advert free. So there's no donations, mattresses, vitamin pills, meat boxes punted to you throughout the show. Hopefully you find value in what we do and appreciate the fact that we're independent and advert free, and you can show your appreciation by visiting www.icqpodcast.com/donate, where donations help keep our show advert free and show the value you get for the show. Well, now let's head over to the news roundtable, where Martin is joined by Leslie, Edmund and Matthew as they discuss the latest news, including new SOTA awards and the Ofcom report released. So guys, I hope you enjoy.
Well, hi guys, and welcome to this evening's news roundtable for episode 308. I'm afraid the gremlins got us a bit. I sent out the request to the guys last night. Unfortunately, nobody got the email request, which is a real shame. It didn't bounce, it just disappeared into the ether. However, with a bit of perseverance, I've managed to contact 4 out of the 5 presenters that are on tonight, and only 3 of them could make it. Unfortunately, Ruth can't make it, and Dan Romacek, unfortunately, probably hasn't got the emails and the shared documents, so that's why he's not here. But, as always, we got Mr. Leslie Butterfield G0CIB. Hi, Leslie.
And the gremlins are hitting this station as well, because my headphones are falling apart. So I quickly before the show had to get some super glue to glue them together again. So I don't know what else is going to go wrong tonight.
Well, I'm sure Skype's going to screw us up a bit. He did at the start of your little chat there, but hopefully it'll behave itself. I did say to Colin that everything's going to go wrong tonight, including, I guess, be umpteen Skype updates, but they haven't happened just yet, and I'm touching wood. We also have Mr. Edmund Spicer, M0MMG. Hi, Edmund.
Hello, Martin. Hello, everybody.
And, you sound as though you're okay, so that sounds good. And also, Mr. Matthew Nassau, M0NJX. Hi, Matt.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, but you didn't get the news stories till about 10 minutes ago either, did you? So it's...
I don't know why I'm here. I'm thankful for the invitation, but I'm just going to take the questions as they come.
Yeah, we'll get one out, so that'll be good. And lots of interesting things happening. The feature of this episode is announcing the 2019 Homebrew Heroes, so after the news, you'll find out who that is. And a very worthy winner, in my opinion. Okay, first news story. I kind of like this one. Belgian hams may use OR prefix to celebrate the birthday of Her Royal Highness Princess Elizabeth of Belgium. I think these are nice things to do. Yeah, what do you think, Leslie?
Well, I think this is a really unusual prefix, because I've not come across it before, Martin. It'd be good to hear it on the air. Also, I think it gets the hobby out there as well. So, Belgium, been there before, was at a beer festival. Really, really nice place and really lovely people. So, I look forward to hearing the call sign on there.
Yeah, so do I, and that'll be a nice one to get in the log. I haven't been to Belgium since I was 10, Leslie, so that was years ago. So, but when I remember it was very, very good. Edmund, your thoughts on this one?
Like Leslie, I've not heard the Oscar Romeo prefix on the air in the 10 years since I became licensed. I've heard them use Oscar Papa at the beginning for special events stations very occasionally. But it's a really nice touch, this. Many happy returns to Her Majesty, by the way. Because they're only replacing one letter with another letter, they're not lengthening the call sign at all. That shouldn't cause any problems with software logging programs. And last but not least, it lasts for 2 months, which is a decent amount of time. And of course, the very end of that just coincides with the Christmas holidays. So hopefully more people will be on the air to activate those call signs and to work them as well. But it's good that it's for a decent amount of time and not just for, say, a week or something like that. I seem to recall in this country, for was it one of the royal weddings, we were able to insert or change a letter in our call sign, but we were only able to do it for about 7 days or maybe even shorter. I don't know if you can remember the particular royal wedding I'm thinking of. So yes, it's a call sign I haven't heard before. 1 letter substitution, so keeping it short, which is nice, and 2 months, a decent period of time. So I would say if you're in Belgium and you can use this prefix, then go for it.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and I was struggling my brain to remember what the prefix was we could change and when it was, Edmund, but I can't honestly remember. But I know we do this similar sort of thing in the UK. Matthew, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, while you guys were talking, I took the advantage of doing a bit of a Google search. So first of all, the change in Belgium to Oscar November to Oscar Romeo, it's going to be great for people who kind of are on the air trying to collect unusual call signs. And it's great that it's also important that we're tying the radio and our jargon and our nomenclature with real world events, the royal princess's birthday, something like that. So it's nice to connect the hobby to things that are going on outside of our little closed universe. In the UK, we had a wedding in 2018 with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the American actress. And we were given the 3-day window from the 19th to the 21st of May 2018 to insert the letter R into our call signs. But we were required to have an NOV, notice of variation, to get that done. So the Belgians are taking a little easier route by just saying, if you're licensed, please use OR instead of ON. So that's kind of a cleaner way of celebrating and getting everyone on the air with the celebratory call sign. And I guess we do that, with our royal family. We have events like that. We've done that in the past, adding R, I think, to Prince William's wedding about, when was that, 6 or 7 years ago? So, it's enjoyable to kind of get us to think about other things outside the hobby and say that we're celebrating, a wedding or the Olympics. I think there was special event stations around the Olympics, maybe something around the Olympics, wasn't there? Maybe Edmund, remember?
The national event, I think is the word you're looking for.
Say again, Leslie?
A national event.
Yeah, a national event, and we can kind of express that internationally through our hobby, which is a nice thing to do.
Yeah, well, the one for the Olympics, because Edmund and I went and we actually operated the Olympic station, but it was 2 Oscar 1 2 Lima, and that was a strange call sign, but 2 is a UK call sign, isn't it, Edmund? So that was valid.
Yes, for the Olympics, we could optionally insert an Oscar with an NOV, and I think for the Queen's Jubilee, at the same time, did we get the letter R for that as well? This is going back to 2012, so my memory's a little bit rusty. Sorry.
Yeah, but anyway, it's a real nice one. It's an extra interesting call sign that you'll get in your logbook if you keep a log. And let's hope many of you work them over there in Belgium. For us in Europe, it's not that far away. For other parts of the world, it may be a bit more difficult with the sunspots, but let's wish them every success. Moving on, we had a little bit of a pre-show discussion about this, but HAREC exam at HAMEXPO show on the 12th of October. And it kind of, we were kind of discussing this, but it looks like if you take the HAREC exam, you could then take your certificate back to, say, in the UK and to Ofcom, and they would issue you a full M0 licensed, because they're saying that it's the same as doing all three of the UK licenses. So, difficult one. Don't really know. It sounds like that we've had people keep saying that they want to go straight to full license. Is this a way of doing it? I wonder. Edmund, what's your thoughts?
I think it would probably just be easier to pass the foundation and the intermediate rather than learning French, going over to France for the day and sitting the HAREC exam, as referenced in this news story. I must confess, I did it the easy way, foundation, intermediate and full. Because remember, folks, if you're capable of passing the full license, there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't also be capable of passing the foundation and the intermediate as well, maybe even on the same day. So that's probably the way to do it, and it's the way I did it over a 3-year gap, not all on the same day. So because I took that route, I've never really paid much attention to HAREC other than vaguely being aware that it existed, but I must admit I'm rather confused as to exactly what its intended purpose is or how it works at all, really, Martin. So I'm sorry I can't shed any light on this subject. Back to you.
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of meant to be a sort of an international standard. You reach this international standard accepted by the SAP agreement and countries that are in the SAP agreement. But interesting. Matthew, go on, what's your thoughts?
Yes, so I'm trying to make heads or tails of this story. So HAREC is a Harmonized Amateur Radio Examination Certificate. And it's meant to be a statement, well, at least my understanding of its existence is it's meant to be a conversion statement that says if you've passed your exam in Germany, and you have a certain standard of, full license or whatever it might be, you can get a HAREC certificate, which allows you to go to a foreign country and request the equivalent license in the foreign country. So you can go from Germany to come to the UK and request an M0 full license. And you wouldn't have to sit the exam because your prior experience, as validated by your HAREC certificate, essentially says that the efforts you went through in your national exam in Germany, for this example, is equivalent to passing the standards required in the UK so you can have a license. So it's kind of a conversion tool. I'm not aware of there actually being a HAREC exam, that there's a syllabus that supports a license, amateur radio license, which is somehow internationally transferred. I think it's a standard, it's an agreement of comparable standards between national exams for CEPT countries and some of the non-CEPT countries, with some exceptions like the USA doesn't recognize HARECs, for example. So they're saying you can go to this HAMEXPO in Le Mans in France and sit a 40-question exam. It takes an hour, multiple choice, and you'll walk out with the equivalent of having done all the UK exam. So I'm wondering if this is actually some sort of French license that you're going to get qualified in because it says the exam is only available in French, conveniently. In which case you will get a HAREC certificate to say that you have passed this standard, and then you can take it anywhere else that you want to go. But unfortunately, I couldn't follow the link that was in the thing. It wasn't working properly. But I've looked at I think I'm looking at the definition of HAREC, the documentation. It's just a conversion statement rather than an exam in itself. It's not a license in itself.
All right. Well, I'm not sure. I thought it was, but this is what the discussion's all about. But I'm now going to bring Leslie in. Leslie, what's your thoughts on this one?
To be honest, I would fail it because it's in French and my French is non-existent. I'm ashamed to say. Oh dear. My understanding, I mean, I like I said, I got this story a few moments ago, and I've been trying to scramble around to get more information on it. and my understanding is very similar to Matthew's there, that if you've got this certificate, then according to the signatures of the scheme, you can go to that country and they will issue an equivalent license. And I've been going through the document. It's called TR61-02, Harmonised Amateur Radio Certificate. And it's a 24-page document. I haven't been able to go into the detail of it yet. I'm literally just glancing over it as we speak. So, but if anyone wants more information, I suggest they Google this document. I'll just go out, say what it is again. It's CEPT TR6102. It's called the Harmonised Amateur Radio Certificate, and that will give you all the technical information that you need, what countries it covers, what the I'm not sure if it covers the syllabuses. Yeah, I'm just looking through the list of the countries at the moment. There's an awful lot of technical information here, and anybody that's interested, I recommend they look at this document.
Well, it's always worth looking at these documents and just understanding what's happening around the world, and that's why we raised it as something to discuss. Mm-hmm. We probably don't know enough about this, but our understanding it differs, and which means that the HAREC system is not as well publicised as it ought to be, and maybe somebody in HAREC ought to try and organise it.
Martin, I've been in the hobby 30 odd years, and well, I was aware of this, but I didn't look at it, to be honest. It was just one of those things that if somebody mentioned it, it was like, well, yeah, there is something about that somewhere. And I just think, there is a syllabus, and it's very, very similar to what we're covering in our examinations here. All that really one would expect, about circuitry, components, receivers, transmitters, antennas, measurements, safety. So all that type of stuff is very much of a muchness. And obviously this is the commonalities that once you've covered this, you've got a certificate in which you can go to another country which each one a signature to this system.
Yeah, well, in fairness, most of us only operate in countries that are CEPT, and if you're going outside of that, then if there's another exam, the HAREC exam, that may help you get a license in a country that's not signed up to CEPT, then it could be a good thing. But it's an interesting concept, and it's something that none of us on this podcast today have ever actually had any experience of, because in fairness, when I go to Cyprus or Ireland or Germany or France, it's all covered by CEPT, and
yes.
I'm lucky enough to hold a US license, so that don't stop me either. Although I believe that the US accept our license as well for a short period of time. So it's one that I think a lot of people haven't investigated. Moving on to our next news story, absolutely great news story. This is what amateur radio is all about: international friendship. A US radio ham flies to the UK to present the First Class Operators Club honour to a friend he's been working since the 50s. Absolutely a brilliant one. What do you think, Matt?
Oh, it's great. I mean, come on, this is history, presented to us. So the story is that there's a guy called Ted Trowell, Golf 2 Hotel Kilo uniform. He's currently aged 96. Down in the Isle of Sheppey here in the UK. And he's been having an amateur radio conversation with an operator called Bill Maxon, November 4 Alpha Romeo, who's also 82, who's over in the United States. And they've been, chatting and hamming and rag chewing and God knows what else over the years, since the 50s. And yet, over that time, starting out initially with Morse code and then eventually moving into voice, they've had the article says 2 encounters in actually meeting each other over that period of time. The last time was in the 1980s. And so Bill Maxon flew over from the States to meet Ted Trall, who is now in a retirement home at the sprightly age of 96, to pass on the information or to share with him the award of being an honored member of the First Class Radio Operators Club, which must have been a delight for him to receive, and great for them both to reconnect over the years and over the distances that they've been staying in touch. So it's a real sort of heartwarming story, a story of friendship and the kind of communications. You think of the world, how it's changed since the 1950s when they were starting their friendship, their communications. They were using, think of the equipment they were using, the old dedicated transmitter versus receiver. They were, switching over transmit to receive. They were using Morse. The world was valves. The world felt a little bit bigger because distances had to be traveled by take a ship across the Atlantic or risk or take a long flight across the world, all that kind of stuff. The world has completely changed. So to see the story still going on today in 2019, it's wonderful.
Yeah, certainly is. And I was looking at this because Leslie was ragging me a little bit that I was probably the only one that was born when this started happening. But
Never.
oh, not much. Anyway, I just spotted that Ted has been a member of the First Class Operators Club since 1952. So that was before I was born, Leslie. 1 year before I was born. And Ted was radio amateur as a boy before the Second World War. So he held a license before the Second World War. Phenomenal story, and I really enjoy that. But Leslie, go on, you have your say.
I think it's a great feel-good story. I was going through it, and one thing that sort of did catch my eye was that when he moved into the care home, that the management allowed him to install his radio transmitter and receive in his room so he could carry on with his hobby. I think that's absolutely great, because you hear these stories where people move into care homes and, should we say, the management are very strict. You can't do this and you can't. And come on, this is his life. This is what he's about. And I was just so glad for him that he could carry on doing it. And it really is a good feel-good story. Good on him.
It certainly is. And, being able to take a radio into a nursing home, that's good. I know we've talked about network radio being an option potentially. And interestingly, I was talking to Chris Taylor at the rally, and he was saying that he had an occasion to visit a nursing home, and they got very worried when they saw a handy-talkie on his belt. So, there's ignorance in the care homes society as well. Edmund, what do you think?
You've just solved a mystery, because one of the things I was going to say was that in the last day or two, somewhere, I had heard or read or seen something about a chap going into a nursing home with a handheld radio, and people there being worried about RF or not understanding it, and he'd been told to turn it off or take it away and not use it at all. And I was desperately racking my brains trying to think where I'd seen or heard that, and you've just answered it, Martin.
Oh, well, there you go. It was probably in the video we recorded with Chris, but as I say, it's one of those things. Nursing homes don't like it, but to be in operation all those years the guy's talking is phenomenal. More than 70 years of operating. It's great, isn't it?
It is phenomenal. You've solved my mystery of deja vu, so thanks for that, Martin. So yes, many congratulations to Ted, partly for being invited to this prestigious position within the First Class Operators Club, which is no mean feat in and of itself, but also congratulations of still being active on the air at the ripe young age of 96. And what a call sign. I don't think I've ever worked a G2 plus 3 letters. I'm certain I've never worked this gentleman, which is a pity. I hope I will one day. And I'm also very pleased to see that, as you've said, Martin, the nursing home are being very accommodating and allowing him to have his radio equipment there, and I gather from the description of it that it's HF. Not that there would have been anything wrong with doing it over Echolink or network radio or something that involved the internet, but if he's still managing to keep a regular sked with his friend on HF at the bottom of the sunspot cycle, that's is also a very worthy feat indeed. So it's a
I
lovely
wish you could
story.
see my
And
face
what
at the moment.
other? Sorry, go ahead.
I wish you could see my face at the moment because I've got a big grin on it as you're talking about that.
Yeah, HF rules sometimes. And what other hobby? Is there any other hobby where anything even remotely comparable to this could happen?
That's true. That's true. International friendship, certainly something that we all enjoy in this hobby, and it's nice to see other people do as well. Moving on, the SOTA organisation have just got a new mountain goat been awarded. Gentleman John Burton G0CIB from Shropshire in England has been awarded a mountain goat, the award. And they have to do 1,000 activation points, so it's no mean task. Matthew, you've been out doing a few SOTAs, not many, but you're starting to get into it, and I know there are clubs talking about doing more of them. I'll let you go first.
Well, my eyes water at the thought of mountain goat status, 1,000 points. I know what it's like to try and get 8 points up a prodigious steep climb in North Wales. It was about 950 meters. So to accumulate the kind of, let's be fair, a mountain goat in SOTA is an enormous feat. 1,000 points, that's a lot of climbing, that's a lot of dedication, a lot of bad weather, a lot of equipment being taken up and down mountains. It's good that we make a bit of a song and dance about it. So John Burton, G0CIB, well done. Absolutely. I feel for all the days that you didn't want to do it, or you wished you hadn't done it, or whatever. I know the effort that goes into it, so congratulations.
Yeah, I've only done a few, and I know what it's like. Edmund, have you done any SOTA activation?
Yes, just the one on Campbell Hill in the United States when we went over there earlier this year. So I think I've got 1 point, 999 to go. My eyes water also, and apart from also saying congratulations on this achievement, there's nothing I can add.
Yeah, I should have remembered you actually had done that one because you and Ed Durant went out to do a SOTA activation in Ohio, and it was raining pretty heavily. Chris Howard took you and sat in the car and videoed the pair of you getting soaked. And Ed was trying to do HF, and I think you went the sensible option and went 2 meters, and you got your 4 activations. Unfortunately, Ed didn't, but that was a nightmare day.
Well, I worked 4 stations, so it counted as an activation, I think. But the first person I worked, Ed also worked. I lent him my handheld, so he qualified as well by making at least 1 contact. But because I made 4 contacts, I got 4 bonus points or something. I must admit my knowledge of SOTA is practically 0, and if I was more involved with it, my waistline might be a bit trimmer, so maybe that's the way for me to go.
Not at all, mate, not at all. But it's fun. Leslie, have you ever done any SOTA activations?
Not ever done any SOTA activations. The only thing near to that was we've got a place just down the road from here called Pole Hill, which is, I think it's about 90 meters ASL. And it's got a good coverage, very good coverage, especially on VHF, UHF. And it's the only place in the UK that's got 2 obelixes on the same site. I must be getting soft because I tend to be adverse to rain. I mean, when I was in the 20s, I went out and I didn't really care about the weather, but I've seemed to sort of find a nice, shall we say, dry spot today. I'm a bit adverse to getting wet and soaked to the skin like I used to be.
Hey, I don't have any problems with that because I agree with you. And I often say, and people look at me silly and go, go, well, I don't understand, but I said that I'd love to water ski, but I don't like getting cold and wet. So that blows that one out. And they say, oh, you can do it in a hot climate, but when you're being towed behind a boat at 30 mile an hour or whatever it is, the wind's certainly going to be chilly. So I think I'll just think about it a little bit more, but it's probably never going to happen in my lifetime. There you go. So I agree with you about not wanting to get wet. Last news story, Ofcom 2018-2019 annual report. This was sent to us by Ian Abel, G0CIB, and it outlines the Ofcom report. Now, it's a government-type report. It's an interesting report. We'll have links to it in the show notes, and I think it's getting on for a couple of 100 pages when you start looking at it. So if you're interested, we'll have a look. But some interesting stuff in here, Leslie. Probably a bit legalese in places, and we've only picked out a couple of small items, haven't we?
Yes, like I said, we got this very, very late. So, to be honest, I wasn't able to go through it to the detail I'd like. But a couple of things were sort of brought to my attention. I'll just sort of go through them. Sharon White leaves Ofcom to join John Lewis, a partnership. Ofcom prosecuted 2 pirate radio stations this year, but there were 10 on the previous year. The amateur radio licenses are now lumped in with boats and ships. It's amateur and maritime. And there's a provision for £229 million. Sorry, £229 million provision has been made for litigation. Like I said, I don't really want to comment on that. I just want to sort of say that that's factually from the report. If anybody's interested in what's going on in Ofcom, have a look through the report. There's an awful lot to there, and we couldn't possibly cover it all in this short podcast.
Yeah. Edmund, you any thoughts on this? I mean, I think Sharon White did a great job. She's now moved on to the John Lewis partnership, and I wish her every success. But what do you think of what's been said?
Yes, likewise, and her departure was very well publicised a little while back when it happened, wasn't it? The one that jumped out at me from the information here in the show notes was the number of prosecutions for pirate radio. When I was at university in southwest London 20 years ago, admittedly, at the weekends, every spot on the FM dial that didn't have a legal station on it would have a pirate station, and sometimes those were too close together for comfort on top of each other. I know a lot of broadcasting has undoubtedly gone online since then, but I'm sure that even today in the London area or other big cities, there must be, well, far more than 10 even stations on the air. So I was really surprised that the figures for the prosecutions weren't higher than that, Martin. That was the one that caught my attention.
Yeah, but the problem is that the pirates are getting cleverer now. I mean, in the old days, they put up an antenna and they connect to that antenna and do what they did. Nowadays, they put a transmitter up on top of a high building with an antenna, and they have a microwave link. Right, so you've got a microwave link to the transmitter, and all right, they lose a transmitter and a microwave link when they find the transmitter, but they don't find the studio, and they don't find the other people. So they can move around fairly quickly, and unless you get to the site where the microwave link is and you turn it off effectively and look down it, but then bearing in mind you're having microwaves fired direct at you, you can't work out where the remote station is. So it's an interesting one. Matt, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I have to confess, I don't really tour the dials anymore on FM radio. It doesn't have my style of music, despite pirate radio in or out of the London area. I recall someone telling me a story once about someone who was operating pirate radio up on Epsom Downs. Does anyone remember that story? They were doing something up at that. Anyway, maybe it's not relevant. It's worth our Sutton and Cheam Radio Club tends to operate occasionally. Well, back to the main story. Ofcom report. It's, as you'd expect, a fairly dry legalese annual report statement of how they've used the government money, what the revenues were. Interestingly, they earned about £1.6 billion in receipts for the past financial year based on selling spectrum and finishing auctions in the 2.6 gigahertz region. The word amateur only appears twice in the actually in the same format of amateur and maritime licenses on the same page within 2 lines of each other. So from our perspective, from our hobby, we're not going to find much information in the annual report. But I guess the numbers speak for themselves. It's a significant part of revenue generation for the Treasury, the UK Treasury, through managing spectrum resources, referencing the £1.6 billion that was earned in receipts. It's big bucks, and when you look at the relative size or the relative footprint that we have for who we are, we have a lot of radio space, spectrum space, and we should absolutely make as much use of it as possible, because organizations, as we've seen over time, the conversation we had a couple of podcasts ago around VHF primary use at the work committee meetings would be, basically, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So let's just stay on top of the game and lobby our local MPs or whatever it is to keep radio active and make sure we still have our access. It's an interesting document to read just to see the scale of the Ofcom business, because that's ultimately what it is. It's not just some bureaucratic body. It does a lot, to within its remit to manage spectrum usage and to sell it and to mitigate against risks in that business. So interesting read, a little bit dry, but I'd much rather listen to Edmund in the old days than go on a page.
It's the way the world is now, Hey,
Well, I can tell you a little story, Matt. I've never been involved in the broadcasting end of pirate radio. Every broadcast station I've ever been on has been legal and proper. But back in 1998, at the university I was attending at the time, we set up a student radio station called Insanity, which is still on the air to this day. It's a community station latterly, but it started as a student station. And we got a 28-day restricted service license, 25 watts we were limited to, and we went on the air on, I think it was 107.4 was the frequency that the radio authority, as it was at the time, gave to us before that merged with other organisations to become Ofcom. So we went on the air and everything was wonderful. And one day I was in the office and the phone rang, and I can't remember if it was me that picked up the phone or somebody else picked it up, and I was just standing within earshot at the time. And a few miles away, there was a long-established pirate broadcaster. I think they were in Slough or somewhere like that, and they were on 107.5, so 100 kilohertz up from us. And as soon as we picked up the phone, this guy ringing us from this pirate radio station started having a right go at us about how we were causing interference to his listeners and how our rubbishy student radio station meant that his audience, who wanted to hear all the latest drum and bass, couldn't hear his station anymore, and if we didn't QSY, he was going to send the boys round. and I explained politely that we couldn't change frequency, not within the terms of our license, and that we were very sorry and all of this, and there was nothing we could do about it. So yeah, I've never done pirate broadcasting, but I've been on the sharp end of a complaint from such a broadcaster.
Well, there you go. It was interesting, and I was asked to join a pirate station in South London back in the very early 70s, and effectively in them days, the programs were recorded on cassette tape, and I think they used to have a pram, and they used to push this transmitter around in a pram with the tape, and they'd have pre-arranged antennas put up in trees here, there, and everywhere, and they'd move every hour so that they didn't get caught. Well, they got away with it most of the time, but occasionally they got caught. But at that point in time, I wasn't doing things illegally, and I'm still not. So, it was interesting. That particular radio station has now gone legit, and it's one of the biggest ex-pirates in London that's actually on the air now. So, it happens. Right. Well, that concludes the news stories. So I'm now going to spin round quickly. Leslie, what have you been doing with radio since the last time we spoke to you?
Well, I've been a bit ill for various things, so I've been trying to recover from that. Radio-wise, we're still experimenting on cables. We're still working on that cable project. So I managed to obtain an AA35, which is like an antenna analyzer, and I saw one going for a really good price on eBay. So we're playing with that at the moment. The other bits and pieces we're doing is with the local club. I'm doing all the books for that. So, yeah, trying to recover, but still doing bits and pieces. So that's what we've been up to so far.
Right, sounds interesting. And you talk about trying to work out aerial and coax impedances and things like that. I was watching some videos on YouTube, and I do not own one. I'm not suggesting anybody goes out and buys one or whatever, but there's a thing called a mini VNA, which draws Smith charts and gives you all sorts of
yes,
information.
Martin, my internet has been buzzing with that particular project.
Yeah. It looks interesting. It's a vector network analyzer for 50 quid, mate. And I keep looking at it going, I want one, but do I want one? I'm in an hurry. I'll probably get one at some point in time in the near future, just to have a play with it, because it does look an interesting device. But I'm not endorsing it because I haven't had my grubby hands on one. So guys, you listen. If you go out and buy one and it doesn't turn out to be what you wanted, don't blame me, because I haven't proved it in my own mind before I tell you. So there you go. Edmund, come on. You and I were out a couple of weeks ago. What else you been up to?
Well, I had a great time at the National Hamfest and met many friends, old and new, there. So I'm not going to try and list them all, because I'm sure I would forget somebody and upset them by so doing, but it was lovely to see you at the Hamfest if I did see you. Since then, I've done very little radio stuff, really, just been so busy with work. The weekend after this episode of the podcast comes out, the 19th and the 20th from memory of October, is JOTA Jamboree on the air. I'm not taking part in that this year for various reasons, but if you have the possibility of going on the air and working some Scout special event stations, I'm sure that they would love to work you. What else? Oh yes, CCOM Antennas, who we met and interviewed at the National Hamfest. I tracked them down on eBay, and as well as amateur antennas, they're selling on there a dipole for the VHF FM broadcast band 2. So I've ordered one of those. It hasn't arrived yet, but when it does, I'm going to give that a thorough testing, because I've often found that a good indicator of tropospheric ducting on 2 meters is when I start to hear stations on the FM broadcast band that I don't normally hear. And normally I listen for those through my collinear in the attic, which actually works surprisingly well for FM broadcast. But I'm hoping this will work better still. I'm sure it will, in fact. And looking forward to installing that when it arrives. Other than that, nothing else to report, I don't think, other than to say we were talking about call sign prefixes. Back in 2012, for the Queen's Diamond Jubilee, we were able to insert the letter Q for Quebec, if we wanted to, between the 5th of May and the 10th of June. And then a bit later on, we could put an O for Oscar in to celebrate the 2012 Olympic Games and Paralympic Games as well after that. And that was between the 21st of July and the 9th of September 2012. The only other notable one around that time the following year, in 2013, we could put a letter V for Victor in to celebrate 100 years of the Radio Society of Great Britain, and that was between the 5th of July and the 31st of July. But none of those, or few of those rather, 2 months in a row as per the Belgians. I've just found a couple of my old QSL cards, you see. So that's it, Martin. Back to you.
Yeah, sounds good to me. And those antennas from Seacom, I bought 3 of them, and they're extremely well made. I'll cover a bit more when we come to that. But yeah, you should have fun. Matthew, what else have you been up to since the last time you was on here?
Yeah, well, legendary low profile. With yourself, we were on HMS Belfast last weekend. The monthly trip to the HMS Belfast, the ship, and sitting in the Thames River, just near Tower Bridge, operating from the Bridge Wireless office there, and having a great time of working with the public and giving Morse code certificates with the kids and so forth, and adults as well. I didn't operate the radio at the time. It was quite busy in the BWO, so maybe you can talk a little bit about that. Otherwise, there's the old adage of, to improve or to invest in your station, you should really try to put as much metal in the sky as high as possible. Of course, referring to the antenna. And towards that, I've made the bold decision of taking advantage of some opportunities on a well-known online auction site, and I bought myself a mast, a pneumatic mast, 12.2 meters or about 40 feet, with all the bits and pieces, all the bells and whistles, guy ropes and such, which currently is sitting in my garage. I'm not exactly sure what to do with it because it's big. It's about 8.5 foot in its collapsed state, so about 2.6 meters. So it's quite a big thing. I have to give a big thank you to Chris Howard, M0TCH, who I wouldn't say volunteered, but he saw it might be an interesting road trip to help me by taking me down to the seller's place, which is way down on the south coast, and picking it up in heavy rain in the back of his very large Volvo estate car. So big thanks, Chris, for the strong arm efforts and the fuel and the chats on the multiple hour road trip that we had to pick this thing up. So I'm looking forward to putting it through its paces in as and when the time arises in the next couple of weeks. And today I just finished putting up a small pole in the backyard. I put the sink sort of a tree. What do they call them? A tree stake in the ground, which is sort of a thing, a bit of wood that you would use to support a sapling tree to provide some stability. And I'm using a painter's pole, a little 5-meter painter's pole, which I can raise and lower. The idea is to be able to run a 40-meter off-center fed dipole. I hope I may just have enough length for that across the roof of my house here in southeast London to just get back on the air on HF. So hopefully the landlady's happy with that. So all speed ahead. I'll put some wire over the roof the next couple of weeks, and away I go.
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds great, and you have been busy as well. Well, and just closing out what I've been up to, probably not as much as most of you, but in fairness, I was on HMS Belfast last weekend, as Matt said. I was there with Chris Howard, Matt, and Tim, G4YBU, who joins us on the Belfast very often. As well as we had Dorothy, M0LMR, and her husband Richard, G7OED, I believe Richard's call sign is. He changed it back to his original G7 call after he had the opportunity and dropped his M0. But Dorothy, I know, thoroughly enjoyed operating. She did about 15 VHF contacts, and it was great. You just sat Dorothy in front of the radio, and away she went. That was good. Moving on from that, I also met up at the National Ham Fest with Warren Crawley, who is ZL2JML. We met Warren the previous week on the Belfast, and we mentioned we met up with a guy from New Zealand. It was Warren. He caught up with us at the Hamfest, and we had another nice chat with him. So good on you, Warren. Hamfest for us was extremely busy. We had some great fun there. There are still more videos to come. There's a massive one to come, which we did on the Sunday. Look out for that one. I'm going to leave it at the moment because I don't want you hassling Colin for it, but there's a massive video coming out, which I think most of you will just get extremely excited about. And yeah, the new antenna company, CCOM, we interviewed. There's a YouTube video up of the guy who owns the company. People say, well, why do you want to buy a dipole off him? Yeah, you can make a dipole. The quality of the item. You've seen them, Edmund. I bought 3. I bought a 70 sems dipole, a 2 metre dipole, and a 4 metre dipole. And I think I paid 50 quid for the 3 of them. Now that's the dipole and the mounting bar to go onto a mast. So extremely well made. What else have I been up to? Won't be available for JOTA because the local scout troop that we support aren't doing JOTA this year. So Chris Howard and I are doing a foundation training course on the 19th, 20th and 26th of this month. The training course is the 19th and 20th, revision on the 26th and exam the afternoon of the 26th. Should be interesting because 2 of Chris's brothers are going to join us. So that'll be fun. And this weekend, just as the weekend Sunday this goes out, Chris, Martin, Colin and I are at the RSGB convention. And we've got a presentation to do late in the afternoon, Sunday afternoon. So, as I say, if you hear this, great. But chances are it'll all be over by the time you've actually listened to this bit. And one last thing, start getting ready and I'll give you more information on this. The 24th, Sunday the 24th of November, is Cat's Bazaar, the Causton Amateur Radio Transmitting Society. The ICQ podcast will be there. We've had an invite. And on talking to Dorothy, I think some of the Essex guys will be down as well. So it's a local rally on a Sunday morning. And we'll give you more information over the next week or so. But a little rally that I love to go to because you find all sorts of odd, quirky stuff there. You won't find the big manufacturers or the big traders, but you'll find lots of interesting stuff that I know Matthew and Edmund found last year very enjoyable.
All the goodies.
All the goodies.
Oh, yeah. I loved it. Yep.
Yeah, same here. I went there for the first time in 2018 and it was superb, so I'll definitely be back in 2019.
Yeah. So that's a rally worth doing, and you've heard it from the ICQ boys, not just me, but we thoroughly enjoy that one. More because you have a good rummage, but we'll be there to talk to you as well. So all in all, a great bit of work we've all been up to, which is good news. So I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining me tonight, Mr. Leslie Butterfield G0CIB.
It's been a blast as always, Martin. Thanks for inviting me.
You're always welcome, you know that. Mr. Edmund Spicer, M0MMG.
Thanks for having me on, Martin, 73.
Yeah, 73 is Edmund. And Mr. Matthew Nassau, M0NJX. Good to have you with us again, Matt.
Oh, thanks for the invitation. I love to talk. Jake,
yeah,
thanks.
Cheers. And it was a shame. I did manage to catch hold of Ruth, and she was unfortunately back in study mode. So we're working with Ruth to make sure we can get her on as often as possible. But now she's back at college. It may cause her a little bit of pain joining us. So we'll fit her in when we can. And unfortunately, I think Mr. Dan Ramacek didn't get the invitation, which was a real shame because we do miss you, Dan, and we hope you'll be with us again in a future episode. So, unfortunately missed. So, guys, without further ado, let's say 73s for this section, and move on to the rest of the podcast.
Cheerio.
73.
7-3.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert-free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
Well, hi everyone, it's time to have a look at the news in brief with me, Colin M6BOY. Start with news here in London. A new amateur TV repeater has come on the air. It's in beacon mode. Call sign GB3 Juliet Victor. It's been set up by Justin, G8 Yankee Tango Zulu. And the repeater is located in Petwood in Kent, and it transmits on 3404 megahertz. So the TX antenna is a slotted waveguide design and gives the station an ERP of 150 watts. Receiver inputs are available on 1249 megahertz, and the repeater will shortly be streaming on the BATC website. To receive the repeater, all that's required is a tunable DVB-S2 satellite receiver or a BATC mini tuner, a small dish and a C-band LMB. Coverage predictions show reception should be possible across the heavily populated areas of South East and East London as well as parts of Essex. So good luck to Justin for the new repeater there in London for amateur TV. Not much news going on, but I found this news story, and in a wet and windy island at the moment, I yearn to go into Melbourne, Australia, where they're having the QRP by the Bay event on the 2nd of November, as I say, so next month. It's an occasional gathering of homebrewers, QRPers and portable operators, and normally, I say, a nice group of up to 30 people show up, and so have a couple of hours of bringing along their interesting pieces of equipment, and so having a general chat and enjoying what's last going on there. We've got links to a Facebook group for you, so if you'd like to check out what's going on there in Melbourne in a couple of weeks' time. If you'd like to have your news stories featured on the ICQ podcast, what's going on in your club, all you need to do is pop your details to us at info@icqpodcast.com, and we'll certainly consider you for our next episodes. Well, now we head on to our features episode. Very important one this one. We're announcing the Homebrew Hero 2019. Hope you enjoy.
And now what you've all been waiting for, this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast. Hi guys, today a real pleasure for me, somebody I've known for the best part of 15 years, a gentleman by the name of Hans Summers, G0UPL. And Hans, congratulations on winning the Homebrew Heroes Award for 2019. How do you feel about it?
Well, thank you very much, Martin. Very nice to talk to you again. Yeah, it was a huge honour, big surprise, and huge honour. This is a new award, which I think has been very well received. A lot of people are excited about it. And, you know, to be honoured with the first of the awards, you know, it's a new thing for 2019. The first of the annual awards is just astonishing, you know, a huge honour. So I'm blown away.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting, and in truthfulness, as I said to you before we started recording, I was very glad that I wasn't on the selection committee that went through all of the entries and had to make that decision, because that would be a very difficult decision. And I know Frank is keeping the people that did the selection secret because they don't want hate mail. But I think you are a very worthy winner of this. And, you know, it's not just for your recent radios that you've been doing. I'd say I've known you 15 years. Apart from your QRP Labs website, your original Hans Summers website is still there with some of your original projects, and they used to blow my mind many years ago.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I started that website in 1999, and, you know, that's 20 years ago now. It was early 1999, I remember. And initially I was just collecting together my collection of articles on the Huff-Puff oscillator stabilizer method, which was something I'd seen often in Radcom in Pat Hawker G3 VA's tech topics pages. And then I started adding pictures and things of some of the old projects, and it became really popular. And in those days, 20 years ago, there were nowhere near as many amateurs running websites as there are now. It obviously became more and more popular, and now many people have got a website. So it became really popular, and I put on some of my projects going back to when I first started tinkering when I was 5 or 6 years old, and everything I could find from then onwards. Nowadays, I'm spending a lot less time on hobby radio projects, but although I still do some, and so I've got quite a few things to update on hanssummers.com when I get the time. Just time is always an issue.
It certainly is. It certainly is. And from what I remember, your dad was a big influence in you getting into the hobby, wasn't he? I seem to remember you modifying bits of his equipment very early on.
Actually, yeah, it was on both sides. So my father used to build valve or tube, however you prefer to call them, shortwave communication receivers. And so he was always encouraging about my interest in the hobby. But what really got me started, probably I think it was my 5th birthday, and it was my grandfather who gave me a present of an old Bakelite mechanical buzzer and a flashing light bulb. These are the kinds with the bimetallic strip in them, which causes them to flash on and off, and a switch and a 4.5 volt battery. I don't know if you remember, I don't know if they're still around, those 4.5 volt batteries that were made of 3 1.5 cells and had this little copper strip on the top for the plus and minus terminals. And I was away and I was just experimenting with that stuff and playing with it and trying to scrape up pocket money to buy more bulbs and switches and things. And that was my mother's father. So I was kind of hit on both sides. He was an electrician on British Rail his whole life, and whereas my father was a pharmacist and just doing it for a hobby. So I was hit on both sides, genes coming down from the mother's side and the father's side. I would say it was inescapable, except that I have 2 brothers who have largely, I think, managed to escape my obsession with it, and so clearly wasn't inescapable, but for me it was.
Yeah. Well, I think Bill Mira sums it up very well from Solar Smoke in that those of us who have the knack will always have the knack, and he refers to the Dilbert advert. But I'm sure, like myself, if you get something, if somebody gives you something, it's probably more exciting to you if it doesn't work than if it was pristine and working.
Absolutely, yeah. And there are things like some old restoration projects. I have an old valve radio which was given to me during the time I was living in Tokyo by a Japanese friend, and it doesn't work. It was his grandparents' wedding present or something, and it goes back into the 40s or something like that. It's really nice, and all the wood has decayed and the glue has fallen apart and everything's covered in dust. And I have that there in a box waiting to be repaired. And the exciting thing for me was, they're repairing it, and what will be wrong with it? What do I need to restore to fix it? And not so long ago, somebody said to me, I know somebody who could restore that for you in no time at all, and you're busy, you don't want to spend time on that, and he'll just return it to you in perfect working order. And I said to him, it's not the point having a perfect working order valve radio. I've got radios. I can listen to whatever I want to anyway. I don't need it to listen to anything. The point is the journey and the restoration and the fun of restoring it. That'll be where the fun comes in. So, yeah, I absolutely agree. If somebody gives me something that isn't working, it's just as much fun in many ways as when you get something that is working and can be useful for something. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that probably tipped the sway of the selection committee in some ways is your documentation. I've looked at some kits, and some kits are good, but when it comes down to documentation, they fall down on documentation. So it's okay if you're an advanced kit builder, but your documentation, I would suggest, is even better than the old Heath kit documentation.
Some people have definitely said that, and I've had a lot of nice feedback about that. Of course, the tools that we have now are more advanced for editing than ETHKit had available then. So it does get easier to write good documentation. I had been writing technically on the hanssummers.com website a huge number of articles for many years. So when I came to do kit documentation, I just tried to think of everything in the same style. And when you look at the progression of the kits from the first one until the most recent one, the QCX-CW transceiver, which has 143 pages to its manual, there's definitely an evolution where I'm getting better at doing the documentation. But I do try to be as thorough as possible, because I always call it the dynamic range of human dynamic range of the people who are going to be building the kits, and I want to make it available to as wide a range of people as possible. And so you just try to think of everything that could possibly go wrong, and try to write it in such a way that people can build it from the very experienced level right down to the beginner level. And for example, that QCX kit was built originally by the attendees of the 2017 YOTA summer camp, and many of them had never built anything before. So I needed it to be accessible to them. But then at the other end of the scale, I tried to put in as much technical detail and theory about the circuit so that it can even be interesting for people who have a lot of experience, and they can learn something from it too. So yeah, I don't really think about it being tremendous quality documentation. I just sit down and write it, and it does all come out as a whole sort of flow of consciousness thing. So for example, that QCX manual, it took me only 3 days to write it. Very intense 3 days, sitting here for 10 hours a day hacking at the keyboard, but it does all just kind of flow out and a brain dump. And I think when you're passionate about something, you can write to that level of detail and not spend too much time on it. It just kind of flows out. So it's something I'm trying to develop and maintain, I think, the good quality of documentation, because I have received a lot of positive feedback on it.
Well, I actually went to YOTA 2017 and saw the guys building, some of the guys building your kit. And they were very intent, they were enjoying it, they were very, very happy, and they all worked very, very well. So that was a great one. So in conclusion, Hans, we thank you very much for your time. I'm really pleased that you've won this award, and at least you can say, hey, I'm number one. But
yeah.
If people would like to get in touch with you, Hans, can you give us some obviously websites they can get you from?
Yes. I mean, there's a contact page on hanssummers.com, and my day job now, of course, I work in QRPlabs.com, QRP-labs.com, and there's a contact page on there as well. We also have a very active discussion forum on groups.io, which is just QRP Labs. I have a YouTube channel now, QRP Labs YouTube channel, a QRP Labs Facebook page. What else do I have? So there are many ways, very easy to find. Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's a huge honor, and the last 3 years I've had the opportunity now to do QRP Labs full time, and this is what I really love. I'm not working for a big corporation anymore, and really love doing this. But it is still, although it's putting the bread on the table for the family, it's still a matter of passion and love, the main reasons for doing it. And to be recognized for that by an award like this, it really means a lot to me. So yeah, very happy about it.
So that's great, Hans. Well, lots of ways for people to contact you. And as we close up, thank you very, very much for your time. And I'm personally looking forward to catching up with you at an event in the near future.
Yes, Martin. Yeah, I look forward to that every time. You and your bright orange T-shirts. Always see you from a long distance coming, but always nice to catch up with you. So I'll look forward to that soon. And yeah, thanks for the chat now. Very nice to catch up with you.
Yes, 73 is then, Hans, and thanks very much.
73, Martin. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Well, hi guys. I've managed to meet up with Dorothy today on HMS Belfast. In fact, Dorothy's come up as a guest of ours. Dorothy's call sign M0LMR. And unfortunately, although I met up with Dorothy and Richard at the National Hamfest in the UK, I didn't get to find out that you were getting an award from Bilaras. Can you tell us a bit about it, Dorothy?
Yes, it was awarded to me by Lara. It was a beautiful red ruby gem they gave me in commemoration of their 40 years anniversary of Lara. And it's also, I believe it is for all the things I do on radio, promoting the hobby, running a YLnet, being active out with clubs and just being active on radio, promoting the hobby as much as I can and just being me and playing radio, really, pretty much.
Which is good. And I know you do a lot, and you are an ambassador for radio. And you know, I've heard you on the air. I've seen lots of your publish on Facebook and that. So I know you're extremely active, and that's good. But you talk about tonight. You're on your way home to run a YLnet, but you do let us old boys on as well, don't you?
Yes, very much indeed. It's mostly called a YLnet because it's a YL running the net. And it's just for anyone could come on. It's once a month, first Saturday of every month on a local repeater, GB3DA, 8 o'clock if anyone's around. It's just for anyone can join in, YLs, OMs, as long as you have a licence, of course. It's just a general chit-chat net for anyone to come and join in, and obviously YLs, all the better. Yeah,
that's great. Now, Richard has been up here supporting you, but he's gone off outside for the moment. We let him out on deck, haven't we? And you spent the day with us on HMS Belfast, and I joked with you and said you couldn't go home until you filled the logbook up. But you've done pretty well, I think.
Yes, I have indeed. It's absolute honour to be on this ship, playing radio on a ship. How awesome is that? Yes, I've managed to fill the rest of the page. I've made 15 contacts. Thank you so much to everyone I've contacted today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoying the day. It's lovely here on HMS Belfast.
Yeah, and to be truthful, you've been doing 2 metres. And all these people tell us 2 metres is dead.
No, it doesn't seem to be when I'm around. I don't know why. I just love playing on 2 metres. I just love chatting to people. And most of the time, it's, really enjoyable. Most of the time, I do have lots of contacts. And it's been really great fun. Really enjoy it.
So, equally, Richard was talking about you and Richard want to join the radio club on HMS Belfast, having come up here and seen what it's all about. So we're potentially going to hear a lot more of you on HMS Belfast, I take it.
Oh, yes, I'd love to. Yes, most definitely like to join the club. That'd be really nice. I already belong to quite a few clubs, but certainly not any on a ship. This is just awesome. Yes, I'd love to. I'd definitely love to come up here more often and play radio again. It'd be great. I'd really enjoy it.
Well, that's great news. Maybe next time we get you on HF, but keeping the VHF bands alive is great as well. And I know you also got an award as part of Essex Hams. You got 3rd Club of the Year award as well.
Yes, indeed. Essex Ham came 3rd as a club, an award of Club of the Year, which is absolutely amazing. Essex Ham is always out and about promoting radio. Great club, very much a massive online presence. I believe he has over 1,000 members online, which is fantastic. Training, reporting radio, events outside, club events, field events. Come along and play radio whenever they're out and about. It's really great. Yes, it's been a really great month for awards and things. It's been fantastic. Yes, I love playing radio wherever I can, all the time.
So that's great. And I must admit, I am a member of Essex Hams, although I don't live in Essex. I did sign up. And in fairness, I will try and attend one of your events, one of your play events. I'm looking forward to it. But listen, a couple of great awards you got this recently. Congratulations, and we look forward to talking to you many more times.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. Yes, Essex Ham is a great website, a great club. Thanks, of course, to Pete M0PSX, who is the brainchild of the club. It's a fantastic club indeed. And yes, keep playing radio, keep enjoying radio, and happy hamming.
Correct. Thank you very much, Dorothy.
Whether it's across the pond or over the channel, the ICQ podcast is international.
Herzlich willkommen in Deutschland. 73 de España.
By amateurs, for amateurs.
Well, many congratulations there to Hans Summers, the 2019 Homebrew Hero. Congratulations, Hans, on your award. And in my opinion, richly deserved. And I think the selection committee made a great call in their decision. Well, let's move on to the feedback here that we've had since our last episode. Mainly from Peter Caffrey, Kilo 5 Papa Delta Charlie. And he's following up on the interview we've done with MFJ and the designer of the MFJ 1234 LAN control unit that we did at Dayton, Ohio at HAMFest. And as I say, he communicates back to us and to let us know that he's been working on the MFJ 1234, doing all WSJT modes with his ICOM 7300. And the Remote Mumble app is his next challenge to work on. The Pi is 100% crushing it, and the MFJ package is smooth. So he's going to keep us updated on how he gets on there with, the model there that he's purchased, and keep us all up to date on how that works for him. Certainly, I know, Dad, you got chance to have a chat there with the gentleman who also designed that unit at Dayton Hamvention. That was a gentleman called Howard Nurse, Whiskey 6 Hotel November. And certainly that video can be found on YouTube if you're interested. So we'll check that one out from there. David, Juliet 1 India Lima X-Ray got in touch, as you can tell, in Japan, but an expat there. He's originally from America. He updated as well on a piece of feedback we had from the last episode relating to the number of amateurs in Japan. So he comes back with some interesting points here, and he tells us that currently there's 412,000 licensed amateur ham radio operators in Japan. This sadly is down from its peak of 1.36 million in 1995. So that's quite some fall there, Dad, isn't it, in the last 20 so years? He says it's been falling about 1,000 a month for the last 12 months since, the data was last released. He's enjoying the show, and we're going to chat to David maybe about more information about life as a ham in Japan. But certainly very sorry state of affairs there in Japan if they've lost close on to 1 million amateur radio operators in the last sort of 25 years. It'd be interesting to know a bit more about why that's the case.
Yeah, certainly would, Colin, and it'd be interesting to talk to somebody who is actually in Japan, and because it'll be another slant on the country and at the hobby. I think possibly mobile phones have excited a lot of the youngsters and made it dead easy, and they don't have to get a license. So if you look back a good few years ago, before mobile phones became available, you either had mega costs to across the Atlantic or to a foreign country on a wired phone system, or you had an amateur radio license and you talked to your mates and maybe they passed on messages for you. So I can understand why it has collapsed a little bit, but it would be interesting to talk to somebody in Japan about license in Japan, considering that the big three or four manufacturers are out there.
Well, we've reached out to David, and we're going to ask him if he'd like to do that for us. But if not, anyone else that is interested, give us a shout and let us know from there. Now, you might have noticed that we've all got the videos of the interviews that we conducted at UK Hamfest. There's a couple more to be released in a week or so's time, but we're just finishing off the editing work on now, which will be part of our feature for episode 309. So we'll have those for you. You'll be quite interested to see the infectiousness of the gentleman from CCOM, the new antenna manufacturer that was at UK Hamfest. And I know it's got a lot of feedback already by people who, found him very knowledgeable about antennas, and certainly found him very engaging to deal with. I know that you picked up some of his antennas. You purchased them with your hard-earned English pound notes, and I think as well Chris and Edmund might have also picked up antennas. So we'll get your feedback on what you think about the antennas when they're in situation. But I think you were suggested to me the fact you were very impressed, with the build quality from what you saw.
Certainly am, Colin, and I know Chris picked up a couple of antennas. I picked up 3. Edmund bought his online. You can buy them online. You don't have to wait to catch up with CCOM at a rally. You can buy them online. I think Edmund bought his off of a well-known auction site. So, but Edmund's actually bought a broadcast antenna, a VHF broadcast antenna, for where he lives on the south coast. So they make more than amateur aerials, and I did pass the message on to another ham that wanted one for the marine band. So it's worth a look, I suggest, Colin.
Yeah, no, certainly makes sense there. So check out all the videos. Say there's stuff as well regarding the Aircraft K4, the UK release date and pricing, etc. Updates on the 200 watt Yaesu 101D, along with news from other vendors as well. It was really a show for probably the smaller guys and their announcements, and certainly interest. Well, I've had someone as well contact me as well about more information about the BHI noise cancelling headphones. So certainly some of those interviews certainly did strike a good resonance from there. Well, as always, we'd like to thank our donor in this episode, David Reed, Whiskey 6 Kilo Lima, along with our monthly subscription donors who have helped keep this episode advert free. We'll say we generally do appreciate, David, you sending that donation our way. As I say, congratulations again to Hans Summers, our Homebrew Hero for 2019. Thanks again to Leslie, Golf 0 Charlie India Bravo, Edmund, Mike 0 Mike November Golf, Matthew, Mike 0 November Julia X-Ray, for taking part in the news round table there with your dad. You can keep up to date with all the latest news and information, by visiting the website icqpodcast.com, contacting us on Twitter at Colin Butler and at M1MRB, and the Facebook group as well. You're more than welcome to join us there. And mention the YouTube channel at youtube.com/ICQ podcast. Nice and easy to remember there. Of that in there. There is more content to go up over the next few weeks. Subscribe to that YouTube channel and you'll be able to see your the presenters you normally get in your eardrums. As I say, and probably confirm that some of us have faces for radio, but there you go. Right, I think that's about everything run through there. Oh, apart from the most important thing, Dad, it's time for a cup of tea and a chocolate biscuit for the lovely Mrs. B.
Yes, certainly, Colin. But before I do that, I did mention in the end of the news rounds table what we've been doing. Did mention that you're working on a mega video. Now, I didn't tell people what it was. But if you subscribe to YouTube, you'll be told when it comes out. And I think this is one that is going to be well worth a look, because we did it on the Sunday after Hamfest. After Hamfest, up in Newark. So, all in all, I think, there's a lot going on there, Colin. And I'm now off to make Mrs. B her nice cup of tea, find her a chocolate biscuit for when she gets in from work. And we'll carry on as always, Colin.
Certainly will. And now you've mentioned that video as well, now it means I've got to get on and get it edited now, so I better get a move on with that one. Well, listen, guys, we've got another packed weekend. The day this is released, we're at HF Convention. As I say, so more content coming your way, and pretty much shows coming out of the next few weeks. So, guys, hope you continue to enjoy what we do, and keep in touch, and we'll catch up again. I usually say in a fortnight's time, but we'll be catching again in a week's time with episode 309. So we'll catch up then. See you all, guys. 73s.
Yeah, 73.